stuff, man. All right, what's going on, guys? You know, it's me again. Long time no talk. I have this new video idea that I wanted to run by you guys. I will keep doing the vlogs, obviously, and all the important talks. But I'm actually gonna start a new thing where I bring people, such as my peers or other people, onto the channel and just talk about situations, kind of like I do by myself. The thing about mental health is that there's so many levels to it, and it just gets so deep. So while I have experienced a lot, I can't personally cover everything. So I feel like bringing people on definitely will help add to the conversation, right? So that's my plan. So yeah. So the first guy I have today is Brady Barrow. He's actually an old teammate of mine from the University of Guelph. He's in 4th year. He's in criminology. And he was part of the varsity swim team with me for the 4 years. So he was pretty good. So he's gonna come on and just talk about, you know, sports and how they can affect your mental health and just a bunch of other stuff. So let's give this a go. Hope you guys enjoy it. Peace. All right, buddy, I need you to say, welcome to the H panel. Look at the camera. You need to, okay, well, that's fine. What are you doing? You're not my guest. What's up, everyone? I'm back, and today I have a guest with me. Today I have Brady Barrow.
What's going on, everybody?
Brady, thanks for coming, boss.
Yep, Corona.
All right, let's talk a little bit about yourself.
I'm Brady. My name is Brady.
Thank you.
I'm in 4th year criminal justice and public policy, and I'm also in political science. So not criminology, like you said in the intro here.
I did mess up.
That was wrong.
Yep, my bad.
But we're gonna roll with it because I don't want to re-record it. And that's that. I plan to go on to law school. And yeah, I swam for 4 years with Harry, so I know him very well. He's my best friend here at Guelph. I also live not too far down the road, actually. I'm in the room next to him.
Right across the wall.
We share this wall.
Yep.
I hear him breathe every night, so it's kind of... Once I heard about Harry doing this project, and I thought it was just fantastic what he was doing and getting his message out there. And when he heard about doing this H panel, is that what it's called?
That's right.
The H panel. I thought that was a great idea, getting other people's perspectives and views in it. And we thought I was a good, safe start, since we know, he knows me. And we're going to talk about something that's, we both have in common, sports.
Right.
Varsity athletes, that's us. Not anymore. We're both
retired.
We are
super retired.
Yeah, I haven't swam in a long time.
Touched the pool.
Yeah. Anyway, the struggles we had, kind of growing up in the sports landscape and high school and then through university, and maybe kind of touch upon what other people might be struggling with as well in sports, and then kind of like there is some overlap with sports and just like everyday life that anyone can relate to. There's Waldo in the background there. Stealing the show as always.
Again.
It took him like half an hour to get him out of the frame to begin with, but yeah. So we'll get right into it.
Before we get too into it, I wanted to clarify again that neither of us are professionals.
Not
We're
close.
solely speaking on personal experiences and things that we have witnessed as members of sports teams. So just wanted to make that clear before we keep going. So we wanted to pick sports today as our topic because there's so many levels to sports in general. When you're looking at like age groups, different universities, different sports, like the cultures in each is just so different.
The main point that we're trying to take away, just before you even go in, is that everyone has such different experiences based on where they go, how they grew up, who they're competing with or training with, the coaches you have. So like even if, because we both swam, but we were in completely different cities in Ontario, and we had totally different experiences growing up. So just because you're a swimmer doesn't mean you had a fantastic upbringing into the sport or whatever sport it may be. And just around the world, city to city, provinces, states, or just different countries, it's just so different. And I think it's really interesting and important to really acknowledge this diversity and variance all over the place with different sports teams and all that kind of stuff. So we're just going to take a dive into how it can affect people on different levels and really how it can relate to any sport at any given time. Just to clarify, we both love sports.
Yeah.
I grew up playing like every sport possible. Athlete of the year twice in high school, not a big deal. The one time I
nominated for athlete of the year in high school.
He was nominated.
I was nominated. So
went to OFSA.
that's right.
OFSA medalist. Like, you know, it's just stuff like that. It's whatever. We love sports, and it is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. It brings people together. It's awesome seeing international competitions, the Olympics, all that kind of stuff. It's cool seeing just everyone from everywhere of different levels. Doesn't matter who you are or what you are or whatever, you can play, and it's really cool to see that. But this isn't the sports channel, so we're going to be right. We're going to be looking about some of the drawbacks about it and how it affects people's mental health. Unfortunately, again, it does affect many people positively, but unfortunately there is a negative side to it, and it doesn't get as much coverage as the positive side, unfortunately. So thankfully, gratefully, Harry has this channel, and we can kind of talk about that negative side today.
We're going to start off with talking about how we actually got into the sport of swimming. And, talking with Brady for as long as I have, we realized that we're actually quite similar with our upbringings in regards to the sport. When I got into the sport, it wasn't really my choice necessarily. I had been, playing sports all the time as a kid, but I went to summer camp one year, and I remember this vividly. I came home, and I had gotten so fat that my parents were extremely concerned, and they were like, you have to swim because it's the best way to lose weight. And I was like, okay. And then I just kind of stuck with it. It's not a great way to start swimming, but that's where I came from.
That I didn't quite have that experience, but it was just it was my dad's best friend. He started up a swim club. He's like, hey, bring your son out, and he put me in the swimming. And so I think with both of us, it wasn't really like our choice. Like, ooh, swimming, I want to try that. I don't think anyone's ever said that about swimming, to be honest. I would love to have played an actual sport. I'm kidding. So I can bash on swimming because I'm a swimmer. The point is, neither of us wanted to swim, and we were kind of thrown into it. But at the time, I wasn't against it. I'm like, oh, swimming. No, yeah. Swimming lessons once a week, Saturday. My grandfather would drive me. I get a donut after practice every time, and it was a good time. And then just from there, you just go up the levels, and then they introduce you to racing. You're like, oh, racing, that's fun. And then you're just in it from there, and you just keep practicing, keep getting faster, and then you climb up the ranks, and then you're in high school and you're training with the big kids. It is really cool because you look up to these high school kids, and they're so big and they're so fast, and you want to be there someday, and then all of a sudden you're there, and and then now people are looking up to you, and that was pretty cool to me. And I did honestly develop a love for the sport. I loved training and trying to beat myself. And I think swimming is a perfect, relatable to the quote of Albert Einstein, I believe, where it's insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Yeah. And I think stuff like swimming or track, or high jump or skiing, just anything. The same, because the pool doesn't change. It's the same lane. You're looking at a black line, and you just do the exact same thing day in, day out, the same race all over again, but you're expecting different results. And it might be insane, but I loved it for a long time.
So going into high school after finally joining the sport, I want to say again we're pretty similar with the schedules that we had. So I guess I'll go first. I remember going to school after morning practice at 5:30 in the morning, and then going straight to school after that, and then doing however many hours of high school, and then right after I would go to rugby practice, or I would go to my high school leadership camp classes.
That's cool.
And then right after that I would leave that and go directly to swimming again, and then I'd come back, do my homework, go to bed, and have that cycle every day of the week, and it was just absolutely exhausting. And I think you were pretty similar.
Yeah, and we were talking about that before, and we had very similar high school schedules in that, just morning practice, straight to school, 6 hours, and then he had rugby, I played football for 4 years, so 2 hours of physical hitting your head around for 2 hours, and then straight to 2 hour swim practice again, because we doubled a lot of the days. You get home, you're just exhausted, and there's no time to do homework, so any will I had to do homework, unless it was something for marks or something, I didn't do a lick of homework. I used to study for tests the morning of course. Any test exam, I'd be doing it in the classes before, or in the morning before on the bus
in the class of.
Yeah, and that's
5 minutes before the test.
No, exactly. That's pretpretty stressful, I think. At the time I wasn't stressful, but looking back, I'm that I probably had some unconscious stress there.
Oh, yeah.
But it really tired me out. during the days that I was doing all that in the cycle. And I remember I had a girlfriend at the time, like grades 9 to 11, and she would always, I would just be a zombie during the day because I'd be so tired in between my 2 practices or my 3 practices. And she'd be like, why aren't you talking as much, or why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you happy? Like, you should smile more. It's just kind of like, I am so tired and blah blah blah. But then you kind of sound like you're complaining, and no one likes complainers. So you just learn to kind of shut up about it and just go about your day, or pretend to put on a face. Although I just put it out there. I never dealt with any mental illness or anything like that. But I am talking just generally about the physical and mental toll that all these sports had on me. And it was tough to go to class and pay attention and keep up your social life and maintain a nice, happy, energetic relationship with my girlfriend. It was a ton.
A lot of put on a little mind of
Yeah.
high schooler.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, like a little me in high school. So it was tough, and there's no one really kind of asking how you're doing with everything, and just kind of like giving yourself a chance to explain it. Because I think when I was in high school, at least, I was the type of person where it's like, I'm not going to say anything first.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if someone asked me how I was doing, then I would maybe tell them. Or if they asked me like a specific, like, hey, why are you tired? Or why aren't you doing this? Or why aren't you talking as much? I think I would maybe say something then, but I've never been the person to kind of be like, hey everybody, like, I'm feeling this type of way.
Right.
And even if you did, you're kind of just like, you're labeled as complaining, or like, to get over it, because like everyone gets tired. Like,
Yeah, exactly. People are like, oh, I'm tired too, so what?
yeah, it doesn't take an athlete to be tired. Like,
No,
as an athlete, I'm not claiming tiredness. Like, anyone can be tired, and like I would acknowledge that 100%. Like, people are doing so many other things I don't know, so like, that's a thing. But kind of sucks to be kind of grouped into just like being tired with everybody else, when really, like, I don't, like, just to be honest, I'm gonna put it out there, I don't think everyone was getting up at 5:30, burning 3,000 calories in the morning, going to football practice in the sun, and then straight to another swim practice. Like, not everyone was doing that. It was tough to kind of just feel like, just like you had like a bit of an disadvantage there, and not really, you're just having to deal with that yourself. That was kind of hard.
A lot of people couldn't really relate to that situation.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like you weren't necessarily alone, because like your teammates were also kind of doing it to some extent, but like in a sense you were, because all your other peers, while they may have been doing sports, they weren't doing quite as much. The next theme, if I believe, that you wanted to talk about was kind of just how it was hard to open up to people on your team in high school as well, just because of the thought process that most high school athletes were in. For me personally, like I felt like if I ever complained about anything, I was considered a wimp.
Yeah.
And I couldn't show, when I was suffering from, depression and stuff, because I didn't want to be viewed as weak, especially on like my swim team, where I was one of the older guys, or like the rugby team. Like I was scared to show that side of me. It's just not fun having that need to suppress your feelings. So you've definitely, I'm sure you've experienced the same thing there.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think I felt it most on the football team, and like, I think like everyone kind of has that connotation, like, football masculine kind of thing, and that is what it's like. Maybe not everywhere, but from what I experienced, at least, it's kind of like, if you had like any type of minor injury, like, it's technically playable. If you had a headache, it's like, okay, that's concussion. But back, even like, this was only like 6 years ago or something.
It wasn't that long.
It's like, my head hurts after that hit. Okay, like, shut up, go back in, or take a play off and go back in, or any injury that you might have, it was always play through it. And if you truly didn't want to, and you're arguing, like, you'd be a wussy or a wimp or a baby, and like, your teammates are saying that, your coaches are saying that, and then like, obviously you're not gonna go against everybody, and you're gonna play through it and all that. Although I don't know this for sure, I'm pretty sure this prevented a lot of people from coming forward with any struggles that they might have had, whether that be an injury or anything mentally, or anything else going on in their lives in general, like family or friends or anything. I think this really prevented people from coming forward to coaches or seniors and saying what was going on, because they see every day in practice, like, people getting called names and just shamed for complaining, or for legit reasons too. Like, sir, I have a doctor's appointment today. Oh,
Oh, wow, big deal.
Yeah, like, you freaking baby. Like, it'd be stuff like that. Like, and you'd feel bad about if you ever had to miss practice. Like, like I felt like I couldn't miss a practice no matter what, like any swim practice. I remember like a reason why my first girlfriend broke up with me, sad face, haven't forgiven her. Hope she watches this. No. A big part of it was like I didn't have enough time for her, right? Because I swam every evening. Like there's no time before or after swim practice. And like if I ever asked my dad, like, hey, could I skip tonight's swim practice to hang out with her? I would get blasted into an oblivion. Like yep. It was swimming first, it was sports first. Like that was the first commitment, and that was a better priority. And it's kind of like, it's kind of like my dad setting my priorities for me. And that, that kind of sucked. It always felt like you just couldn't miss practice, and you had to put sports first, and that really kind of messes with you mentally when in reality it probably wasn't like that, like yeah, for me, looking back absolutely. On it. The main thing here was that this isn't just, like, just me dealing with an injury and having to play through it. It wasn't just bad for me during that time in football. It kind of builds a way of thinking and hardwires into your brain that, like, it's bad to open up about your struggles in real life. And then that kind of goes all the way to university now. Like, and to this day, I feel like I can't really open up to anybody about anything that I could be dealing with, because it's so instilled in my head from a young age that, like, I'll get in trouble if I open up, or I'll be called a name or labeled as weak if I open up about anything to anybody. It's taken a long time, to kind of acknowledge that, and luckily there's a lot of talk now about it's okay to open up, it's okay not to be okay, all that. That's great. And that is great and everything, but when it's just hardwired into your brain, like,
it's tough to break that mold.
It just, because like your whole childhood and high school years where it's just like no one listens to you and you're just you're called weak. It's hard when you finally get to university and now they're kind of turning things around. It's like, well, I just can't flip the switch and okay, I can talk now. It's tough.
I remember this crazy instance in grade 11 where I went to, you know the story, where I went to Europe for rugby.
Yes.
And the first game we played, I straight up blacked out, like knee to the head, just completely unconscious.
Yeah.
I first, like, 100,000% had a concussion, like, absolutely.
No doubt about it.
Like, bell ringing, like, not knowing where I was, like, all the symptoms.
Yeah.
And my coach was like, do you need to come out? And I was like, come out?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
I'm not a baby. For the next 3 games after that, I blacked out every single game. Like, that, first of all, is so bad for my brain. Second of all, that just kind of shows where, like, the culture was when we were in high school, where it was like, just push through it or you're a baby.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I could have died.
Easily.
like looking back, it was a horrible idea. I could have died. But
yeah, well, we hear about stories about that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, just people passing out and dying.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Perfect condition. Like, their heart's fine. Like, everything's good. There's no problem with them. And then they just die because it's freak accidents.
Because of, like, how you were hardwired. It's just, you don't want to be viewed as weak, so you just keep going. When you have that mentality on a physical issue, it also translates to when, you're suffering with, like, depression or something else on the, like, behind the scenes, and you just don't want to come out, because just like when you're injured on the field or in the pool, you don't want to be viewed as weak. So it's just a toxic way of thinking.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously injuries can be physically challenging, of course, because it's my elbow hurts, that's physical, but it can also be very emotionally challenging and draining. And I think one thing is, it really, really, really sucks to be sidelined with an injury and having to kind of watch your team play and succeed or lose. Because if they're succeeding, like, oh, I want to join in that success, I want to have fun with them. Or if they're losing, you're like, I think, like, you probably think I could make a difference. Maybe you wouldn't be losing if I was playing. And that's not really like a selfish thing, but you always think that to yourself, like, how things would have done if I was playing. And I think Harry can talk more about that. Knock on wood, of course, but I've had a lot of minor injuries, and, like, they've kept me out of games here and there, but I've never had injuries like Harry has.
Well, I'll briefly talk about high school when our rugby team was in the quarterfinals for Lasso, like the big regional.
Ooh.
Oh, big man. And I got hit so hard that I couldn't put weight on my legs in the quarterfinal, so I had to basically watch the rest of the quarterfinal from the sideline. And then for the semifinal, I tried to play and had to get carried off again. So that was the most painful moment of high school, I think, or up there, like top 5 easy. And then this year, so for those of you guys watching who don't really know my life at all, which I wouldn't be surprised if you don't, I was captain of the varsity swim team this year. No, I had a really bad back injury starting in February, and I didn't know if I was going to come back to the swim team this year, just because swimming like over 500 meters, I'd have to get out and stretch because my back was just, it was unbearable. Like it would seize up and I couldn't swim. So this entire year, you know, being the captain, you want to be there. You want to be like showing the rookie guys like I'm tough and I'm a leader. I'm someone you guys can look up to.
Yeah.
But it's hard when, you know, you have to get out of practice and you have to go stretch and you can't do like everything that they can because your back just seizes up and your body just gives up on you. Mm-hmm. So while my mental was there, my physical was not, and that took a huge strain on my mental health. Like especially our divisional championships, like everyone was dropping time, everyone was doing well, and I had to watch on the sideline.
Yeah, doing the timing.
Doing timing.
Yeah.
Like that. There are a lot of moments in my life that are painful, but I think that might have been one of the most painful, just not being able to really be there for the team, you know, and not knowing when my back injury would get better. So just coming to terms with injury and like realizing that it takes time to get back into it, like it's tough.
Yeah, when athletes are sidelined with injuries, they can feel very lost because for a lot of us, our self-identities are very closely tied with the sport that we're playing. If you don't have that sport to play, you lose a large part of your identity. Yeah. And that's kind of like a big identity crisis because you don't really know like who you are. And it sounds drastic, but like it's a real thing. And it's more so when you are retired, and which we're going through right now. It's we're kind of like figuring like, okay, I'm not the swimmer anymore. As I grew up like Brady the swimmer, Brady the fish boy. That's what it always is.
My like, Twitter is swimmerboy98.
yeah. And like, my profile picture is still me swimming. So it's like, who am I now? If I'm not a swimmer, who am I? And obviously, you know, it takes a lot to accept, which I have. I don't know about you, but like I've accepted I'm more than a swimmer. You know, I'm a student. I'm a brother. I'm a boyfriend. I'm a son. I'm a friend to many people and a bunch of stuff. And you have many identities. And it's always important to kind of like take a second and just kind of step back and be like, who are you? And that is very deep. I think it's very deep. But like,
we're getting deep today.
Kind of just like on the level I'm talking about, where it's like the things that you are, and you're not just a student, or you're not just a basketball player, or whatever you are. Like, you're not just that person, and you have so many identities, and you mean so much to so many people. Where it's like, if I lose swimming, it's like my world's not over. I have so much more, worth left that I can divvy up and work hard at achieving with. And yeah, it is obviously it's very sad to retire or like tear your ACL and you're out for the year, but once you figure out that that's not the only thing making up your identity, it's a pretty big step, and you kind of accept that retirement and finally, move on. What the? Anyways,
we're gonna keep going. I don't know what that was.
That was weird.
We're being real professional. Anyway, all right, back to seriousness. So the next kind of area that we wanted to address was like the pressure to perform. For me personally, there was always, my own personal pressure on myself. So any like stress that came from, you have to do this, you have to do that, was mostly my own doing. It was just like in my head. I was like, you have to do this.
Yeah.
But, obviously like your parents are there to support you and, cheer you on and everything. This is again, my own doing. I remember my mom showed me just recently actually, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
She showed me a sheet that said, it was from when I was 12. And it said, what did I want to do with the sport of swimming? And I said, I wanted to be exactly like my dad, because he was a really good swimmer in university and high school and everything. It had nothing to do with him at all, but just me putting that pressure on myself, like, you have to be good, you have to be just like your dad.
Yeah.
Like that right there just strained me like no tomorrow, because you would go do a race or you would go do something, and it was like, if I'm not up to this standard, if I'm even a little lower, then I'm trash.
Yeah.
So that's where my, my internal pressure kind of came from.
I think that goes well with the, your comparative society thing that you were talking about last episode. Go check it out if you haven't already. Mm-hmm. I think it is dangerous once you start comparing yourself to people. It could be your dad, or it could be like Michael Phelps I'm comparing myself to, or maybe just like an older athlete in your sport. And once you start comparing yourself to them, because that's not you, so there's no point in comparing. Like,
it's unrealistic.
I like it. Like, I like the thing where it's the only person you should compare yourself to is who you were yesterday.
Ooh, I like that.
Once you start comparing yourself, and it's on the topic of dads in general. My dad was probably the person that was put the most pressure on me, and not in a bad way. Like, he obviously meant so well, and like I have a great relationship with him. And but like he always expected the best from me because he knew what my potential was, and he wanted me to really get there because he believed in me a lot, and I think I'm really grateful for that. But like it's still a lot of pressure to he always expected best times, and if you've played any sport or done anything, like, you can't win every race, you can't win every game. You can't have the best game of your life every game, and I can't get a best time in every single race I do.
So unrealistic.
It is unrealistic.
But that's the thought process.
There'd be meets kind of early in the season, and I would tell him how much time I added, and he'd get kind of mad, or like I'd be like ashamed to tell him, and over time, it kind of gets to you, and I think that's a big thing. Pressure can come in many different ways. Like, for some people, it's their parents, it's other teammates, it's coaches, all that kind of stuff. And they all kind of add on together, and you can have like a lot of pressure on you. So that's why sometimes we see super good athletes, some of the best in the world in any sport, and the pressure gets to them, and they don't perform. LeBron James can suffer from pressure, like anybody.
Absolutely.
And pressure is a big thing. It can eat away at your mental health and kind of affect you negatively.
It's still hard, but it's easier to handle outside pressures. It's almost impossible to handle inside pressure, like when it's yourself pressuring yourself.
Yeah, so that's one of the worst pressures. So it's like there's all those external ones, as Harry said, and then the real one is the pressure from yourself is kind of what gets you the most.
Once you set your standards way too high, you're almost a goner.
Yeah, I did some reading up on this, and they kind of talked to all these high schoolers and university students, and there's this one girl actually in the States who said she kind of referred to them as sideline ghosts, referring to her parents. That's kind of like not the people like in the game specifically or herself, but more so the pressure from her parents specifically, kind of always, and she always like thought they were looking over her, and kind of like the pressures that she was putting them on. And a lot of the time, parents meet their ego needs through their own kids,
right?
And we see that a ton, and they will often put their own child's well-being over that need for them to get their ego met and for the kid to succeed. It will look good, like on the outside, it won't look that bad as the parents like cheering them on and supporting them and wanting them to do well, and that's all good and everything. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of like behind the scenes, like they're not really caring too much about their own child's well-being and how they're doing and how tired they are, how they're doing mentally. And then I think like my parents never really asked like, how are you doing? Like how like there's always like, hey, how's it going? And like you say good.
Like what's up, buddy?
Or hey Brady, how are you? Like it's always, but there's never really like there's a difference between like, hey, what's up, and then like, hey Harry, like how are you? Mm-hmm. Like no, how, like how are you? And then it's kind of like, oh, okay, that's what you mean, and but you don't really get that a lot. And then this is when it's kind of like kids and teens, they can't really talk to their parents because they kind of get into that suck it up buttercup treatment. And my dad used to say that to me all the time. If I had like any complaint or anything wrong with me or anything, if I was tired or anything, he would just say suck it up buttercup, and then like I just had to keep going because he wanted me to just do well, and maybe I guess he was trying to get his ego needs met. He's coming to golf tomorrow. We're getting drinks with him, so. Yep. So yeah, that's basically that. There's actually a sociologist. He's at the University of Colorado. His name is Jay Coakley. And he said that there's a lot of teenagers that persist on continuing to play a sport way past their time of enjoying the actual sport. So even like continuing through practice and competing while injured, or they just don't like the sport. And I kind of like related to that because the last couple years of swimming, actually, like I just don't like the sport. I didn't like swimming anymore. I didn't like getting up at 4 o'clock. Well, that's an exaggeration. 4:45 a.m. and just getting destroyed in practice. Like it's so hard. After doing it for 15 years, it's like I'm kind of okay with giving this up. I kind of want to know what it's like to have free time and do well in school. Is that so hard? is that a crazy?
It's a lot to ask for.
Is that a lot to ask for?
It's a lot to ask for.
Jeez, I just didn't like the sport as much, but I felt the pressure to keep going, mostly from my parents, because like anytime I kind of brought it up, like maybe as like a joke or something, they just look at me crazy, like, oh no, like you're gonna do your 4 years of swimming in university, that was, and even on the team, that's kind of like. You do your 4 years. You get
if you don't do the 4 years, you're kind of viewed as like, you're a quitter.
Quitter,
right?
yeah. So it's kind of rough, and you're kind of like in this no man's land where I don't want to keep swimming. I don't like it. I love my team, and that was the only thing that did keep me going because, you know, I felt like I could quit if I wanted to. Like I had the power. It's not like I didn't. I could have.
Yeah,
If I really wanted to.
It was very easy to say
I could have. My parents weren't that controlling. Again, love my parents. Like, it was all out of, you know, the best interest of their heart. Going back to the identity part, you know, even my parents, they knew me largely as, you know, their swimming kid. Like, that's how they described myself. I mean, that's how they described me as, is like the swimmer. So like,
right.
anytime I met my dad's friends and my mom's friends, they're like, oh, you're the swimmer, or like, oh, you had that meet last week, or blah blah blah, or good luck at this. And like, I was only the swimmer. It was nothing ever else. Like, I was a swimmer before anything else.
Yeah.
So even to my parents, so it was kind of hard to even think of quitting because I would give all that up, and then you had to answer so many questions, and it's such like a, why would you quit or do this? It's like, I just don't like it anymore.
Right.
And that's not always a valid excuse for a lot of people. No. I also think that's kind of weird how you have to have a valid excuse for them.
Yeah, you
like,
should never.
It's kind of weird.
The only person you should have an excuse for is yourself. Like,
yeah, you're good enough to validate.
Another area of discussion that I think both of us wanted to, you know, reach into was the nasty habit that we both had of looking at the negative parts of our sport as opposed to the positive ones. I'm gonna talk about this more in a further discussion about anger.
Foreshadowing.
Which will happen.
Little teaser there.
Soon, so stay tuned. But I remember, even if I added like a fraction of a second, like the difference of a fingernail, I remember I would go and I would just absolutely lose it. Yeah. And just tell myself like, oh, I'm a failure, like this is terrible. What I wouldn't focus on is the fact that, you know, at this time last year, you were actually 3 seconds slower than what you just went. So you're getting progress. And my dad was really good actually about pointing that out to me, because he could recognize that I was always hard on myself. But he liked to mention, like, you know, at this point in the season last year, you were way slower. You're actually doing way better, and you're on track for a good time. But, you know, just personally, like, when I'm alone and stuff, I'm, like, bashing myself. Like, you should have gone faster than that. Why didn't you? So, you know, just focusing on the bad things during the sport is just, it eats away at you for sure.
When I played water polo, I would always focus on the one bad pass I had, like the one turnover, and I wouldn't think about the 4 goals I scored. Or, again, with swimming, I would focus on the one race I didn't make finals in, but I wouldn't think about the gold medal I won and, like, the 5-second best time I had. Or in football, I would think about the one missed tackle I had, but not the huge hit for, like, loss of downs and, like, game winner. Like, I wouldn't think about that. I would always think about the negative stuff.
I remember the semifinals of rugby so vividly because we lost. Yeah. But there are some games where we killed that I don't even have room for in my brain.
And, like, it's a terrible way of thinking. And I found that this actually took me out of a lot of moments. So, like, I wasn't, like, a lot of times I wasn't happy when we won games or even gold medals. I do play Quidditch. I'm on the Guelph Quidditch team.
It's actually pretty cool.
Believe it or not, it's lit.
You should check it out.
Look it up on YouTube. It's full contact.
It's really cool.
Co-ed. It's like handball, but full contact. Anyways, I've yet to lose a game. And the season is over now, so I'm not jinxing myself. But, like, we played in 3-4 tournaments. We didn't lose a single game. You know, we're the best in Canada. But, and like, we would win gold at the tournaments, but I wasn't happy like my teammates. Like, I'm like, man, I can't stop thinking about the shots I missed, or the turnovers of the other team, or the tackle I missed, or the goal I let in. I would always think about that, and it took me out of the moment. Like, the gold medal celebration, I'd be like, yeah, I'm just not happy. And I think that's a really kind of bad way of thinking and going about situations. And you can easily relate this to your real life in that it's so important to not let those very few and unimportant moments weigh you down. You can get a bad mark on like a little tiny quiz, and you'll be thinking about that 60% on like a 2% quiz instead of like the 85 you got on a 25% quiz, midterm.
Or like when, you know, you get into an argument with your parents or your brother or something, you focus on that as opposed to all the fun times that you had as kids.
Yeah, for sure. Like a little tiny argument over who stole the salt shaker. Yeah, like but and then you forget about everything, and you see that a lot in the world, or just like TV shows. I know it's fictional, but just like the littlest things are always the ones that kind of blow up and, you know, destroy relationships and friendships, and it's always sad to see because there's so much light stuff and positivity that you should focus on, and it's very hard to practice, but every day if you just, go to bed thinking about something positive that happened that day or something you're grateful for, or just like one good thing you did that day over like, all like the very minimal bad things you did, and that can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I've learned that, like, when I play a game, I look back and I watch all the good things that I did and the good passes I had, and it really makes a big difference, and you gain a ton of confidence, I found, and it just continues, and then it affects everything in really good ways.
The final, area of discussion we wanted to get to was how do we fix, the negative energy coming from sports? How do we fix the negative mentality, like the toxic man up, like grow up, that stuff. So for me personally, like, you can attest to this for sure. Like, back when we were in high school, I don't know if it's different now or whatever, I did not know about anything mental health related until first year of university. Like, I didn't even, like, obviously I knew what depression was, but like I didn't know what depression was until I got here and I spoke to a therapist, and like I had gotten to that low point already. Not knowing what depression is until you have it, that should not be a thing at all.
Yeah. And like, we were taught nutrition and sex ed in like grade 6, 7, 8, around there. I think mental health should just easily be taught along with that.
Absolutely.
And like, and what is mental health and how do you take care of it, and what to do if you're struggling with anything, and what your options are. I think, I think grade 6, 7, 8 can easily handle that. It's nothing deep. It doesn't have to start super serious or anything. In high school, they can definitely have good discussions about that kind of stuff. And, we know a ton of teenagers do struggle, and the statistics show a ton of teenagers struggle with many, many things.
If you relate back to my other video again,
go watch it.
Talking about comparative society.
Comparative.
Like, these nowadays anyway, I sound really old, but like nowadays, like the grade 6, 7, 8s, they all have Snapchat, they all have Instagram.
Yeah.
So they're already comparing themselves to everyone, and they're already feeling like, oh, why my life's not worth it as much as theirs.
Yeah.
So if they just have, that little education, like, talk, it doesn't have to be like a full unit even. It just has to be a couple classes.
This is mental health.
Like, this is mental health.
What's
like,
up?
If they can have that entire situation acknowledged, like, it would make such a big difference.
Yeah, and just like how important your mental health really is, because I think we didn't know it was important. Like, I didn't know taking care of my mental state of being was it's a crazy important thing that can actually lead to all these bad things. And I
thought pushing my feelings down was the right thing to do.
Yeah, me too. Having teachers, parents, and coaches, all of them, they need to make it so they express to their students or children or athletes that any struggle is important, and that these kids are able to take time off or get professional help or whatever it is that will help them in the long run. And I think if kids are aware of this, like, they know, hey, like, if I say this, it is important, or this thing that I'm dealing with is important, or like, my parents' divorce is bothering me.
Yeah.
Or I'm sad all the time. Why is that? And then you can actually sit down with somebody, because like, I don't think it's really too young to ever talk to a therapist.
No, absolutely not.
And I think it's kind of maybe connotated to be toward like older people. I can definitely see some like grade 9, 10s being like, oh, I'm just too young, and this is what happens in puberty and blah blah blah. But like, it shouldn't be that way. It should be like, therapy should be very normalized, and everyone should be going no matter what.
100%.
These kids will grow up willing to open up and talk, and that'll be much better than Harry and I, who we were raised to bottle it in and hide it as much as possible, and that's not very good at all. And bad things happen when you bottle things up. So hopefully they're doing that now. I'm not too sure what they're doing in classrooms, and school boards are different all across Canada and the States and everywhere else in the world. But hopefully we can kind of work towards really getting that into the curriculum and getting kids raised that way, so that by the time they're our age, they can be like superhumans who are like not afraid of tackling mental health and really spreading that around and getting this nice open safe space.
Right.
That'd be amazing.
That'd be awesome.
Basically, like, we shouldn't have to wait until we're in our 20s to find out that we actually can talk about our feelings. It's okay to struggle.
Yeah, it's absolutely okay to struggle, and that's definitely a really good message to end on. That's definitely something that kids should hear, for sure.
Yeah, take that one to the bank.
Anyway, guys, that's the end of our first H panel episode. Thank you so much for coming and listening with Brady and I. We really appreciate it. Brady, if you have anything that you want to advertise right now, now's the time.
Got cheap plugs.
Cheap plugs.
I do have a podcast called Case in Punt. Get it? Case in Point, but it's football. It's a sports related, not sports related. It's a football focused sports podcast. I do with a couple of my buddies from high school. We do a bunch of sports. So we have a lot of guests on the CFL. We had Brienne Jenner, who's on the women's national hockey team.
A lot of big names.
And we're on the up and up. So give that a look. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, all that fun stuff.
I'll put their name in the description just in case you guys didn't catch it. So.
Yeah, and Harry will be a guest on soon. So
that's right. So stay tuned. I'll keep you guys updated.
Might be about sports.
Brady, my man, thank you for being first guy on H Panel. I appreciate
Thank you very much for having me on. This was great. Always good to have a good open discussion.
I don't have any money right now, but when I do, I'm starting a ritual where every guest gets a shirt for the H Panel. So you'll be getting that in the mail sometime soon.
That's probably like in a couple of years.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, guys, that's all we have. So you know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe.
Smash that like button.
Smash it. Yeah, it'll be right here or here somewhere. I don't even know. I don't know how YouTube works. Additionally, if you have any questions you want to ask me or anything you want to ask Brady, I'll put all his social stuff in the description. And you guys, you know where to reach me. It's all in there. Also, we will be putting little timestamps of where each thing that we talked about today was, because we understand that some people don't want to watch the full thing, and that is completely okay.
I wouldn't.
So, so just click whichever one resonates with you guys the most.
Yeah.
Other than that, like I said before, I appreciate the heck out of you guys. Love you all, and
I love you.
Stay safe out there.
Stay safe.
Peace.